Oh, doesn't it just feel good when you have a movie based on one of your favorite video games that actually turns out right? That's actually good to watch. That's actually awesome. It's awesome. Mortal Kombat is awesome, guys. Just makes me feel so good. So let's break down my review, let you know what I liked, what I didn't like. There wasn't really too much I didn't like. I did have a couple comments on some of the things, and we'll get to that, and then I'll give my final rating. Let's get to it. So let's first talk about the first 7 minutes of the movie, because of course that's what was already released, to the public. And one of the things I will say, if they do have a Mortal Kombat sequel, which, let's hope they do, I think we should have less teaser trailers, a little less clips. I know this is probably just to get, people, engaged and hopefully get fans and maybe non-NK fans involved and like, oh yeah, I'm gonna go see that movie, I wanna see what happens. But maybe for the next one, let's, leave more to curiosity. So back to the first 7 minutes of the movie, I think this is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie because, much like I said in the Mortal Kombat Legends Scorpion's Revenge, it basically sets up the story for Bi-Han and Hanzo Hasashi, and this ends up being a great, it's not the main plot of the movie, but it's a great backdrop to Mortal Kombat and just kind of gives this kind of side story and lore as to what's going on. And I just really liked it, and I liked the action and the gore, and I liked, when I was going over my review for the soundtrack for this movie, and I talked about how they're very different characters, and, you have one that's, seems innocent and heroic, and one that's obviously devilishly evil. I was watching this scene and listening to it really clearly and trying to picture how I was when I listened to the soundtrack, and I just thought, God, this is some really good storytelling and some really good movie right here, and I really, really enjoyed it. All right, moving on to action and gore. So I, of course, like that this is rated R. It wasn't PG-13. Do I think it's for kids? I think the way kids are nowadays with Call of Duty and all these other games, I can watch it. There's nothing on here that I was kind of like, oh my gosh. But it's super gory. It has lots and lots of action. I will say that. I think that this totally makes up for, it makes the OG Mortal Kombat look very, very simple and plain, which is fine. It's a different time, different era. It totally erases Annihilation. I'm like, I don't know what the heck that movie was now watching this. But I'm talking action, 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 and then tons of blood and gore. Now, I will say the blood is a little bit CGI-ish, but I think the action and choreography make up for it. So you may notice it at first, but as you continue watching it, you're just kind of like, yeah, you don't even notice it anymore. It's just, you see it as like real blood. Moving on to Dragon Marks and Arcana. So at first I was kind of like, last time we saw Dragon Marks, it reminded me of Annihilation, where the villains had these kind of weird, evil dragons that came out of them and like disappeared when they died. So I was kind of like, it's gonna be like a repeat thing of that. But after watching the movie and seeing, the concepts actually play out, I actually thought this was kind of cool. The Dragon Marks, basically, you either are born with it or it's passed down to you, which is usually what happens. It's passed down to you through either bloodline, like in the case of Cole Young, or it's passed down through beating an opponent, kind of like very Highlander-esque. You basically gain it from somebody else. So, Liu Kang talks about how he, defeated somebody and got his mark. And then we also see that Sonya defeats Kano and gets hers, and Kano defeated somebody and got his. So it, that kind of concept, and it actually plays out fairly well. Now, as far as the Arcana, it works for the most part. I did have some little kind of silly things I thought was, especially like with Kano, for instance, like pissing him off is what gets him, that's what's in his soul and gets it, to come about. It worked in the movie, but I just think even like for Jax, it was just kind of, kind of cliche, but I don't know. The movie didn't have a whole lot of time to go on these spiritual journeys with each and every character so they could find their Arcana, except for like kind of Cole Young. But I think overall the concept works, and it'll be interesting to see that if we do get a sequel, if the other characters will have to find their Arcana too, or if they'll already have it, once we meet them. So let's talk about the Earthrealmers. So I enjoyed this group overall. I think Sonya Blade, in particular, I think is probably one of my favorite. I thought Liu Kang was awesome. Cole Young actually worked for me, guys. I know. He was a lot of point of contention for a lot of people when this first came about, but I liked Cole Young. I liked him. I think he works. I think he'll be okay. I think, once he finally got his powers and he had that kind of suit that he was wearing, his armor that basically took damage and allowed him to give it back to somebody, I thought that was a pretty cool concept. And his battle with Gore was pretty badass. So I thought I think we can have Cole Young stick around for a while. And I don't think that Liu Kang is gonna, a lot of people thought, okay, well, if Liu Kang was originally the hero, can we really have two heroes? And I think we can. I think we can. I think this movie did a really good job of establishing Liu Kang as an, of course, already established warrior, and because we have Cole Young, Sonya Blade, Jax, formerly Kano, be more present Earthrealmers that, are kind of new to Mortal Kombat, Liu Kang is not. I think that kind of helps be able to mesh the two characters together and it not like overlap or overstep each other. Now on the flip side, let's talk about Shang Tsung's fighters. Now, I have to say, what a waste of Reiko and Nitara. I don't understand why we did this. I think there was plenty of time for them in this movie to give them more of a backstory. All we know about Nitara is that she is Shang Tsung's favorite siren, and she's very beautiful, and I really find it hard to believe that that's all we got to see Mel Johnson for was, she flew around, she got to make some weird movements, she got to screech a little bit, and then she basically just dies. I'm like, okay, well that was a waste. And then Reiko, I already knew he was going to be a waste, but he didn't even do anything. He didn't even really say anything, and all he had was his hammer. I don't know, what powers did he have? That was his ability? He was just basically a regular general? He was General Reiko, but without that hammer, what would he have done? Screamed in Jax's face? I don't know what he would have done. So, as I predicted, he dies, and he predicted the exact same way. He dies the same way I predicted, where he got basically smashed by Jax, his head smashed. And I just think it's sad that we had to lose those two characters because there's possibly a good backstory. But in another video I'm going to do about sequels in the Mortal Kombat cinematic universe, you'll see that, I think they did it this way so that, if we do get sequels, it'll be a long while before we ever get to those two characters. So I think this was just kind of their way, and it's possibly how they'll do it from now on. If we do get sequels, they'll just kind of introduce characters that they don't think they'll ever be able to get to, and this is our kind of little tease and taste of them. Continuing with that, I want to say that Melina, Cabal, and Reptile, I think they were great. I think, even after seeing Reptile in his, reptilian form, I think it worked out fine. It didn't seem, he seemed more Komodo dragonish, in my perspective, and it wasn't at all like the picture. The picture didn't do it justice at all. The screenshots that we saw, I just, at first I thought, oh my gosh, this is like something out of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies from the 90s or 80s and 90s. So after seeing it in the movie, yeah, it works. Now, the only thing I have to say is Melina, while she did get to say some things and that she had plenty of action, she was fine. I think it was pretty crappy that once we finally got to see her mouth fully open and all her little sharp teeth, she dies. But, hey, she's a clone. Hopefully we'll get to see her again in a sequel. And then Cabal I thought was pretty awesome. And I thought his death, of course, was kind of ironic because, as you know, he's burned. That's why he has to have like the iron lung kind of thing set up. And then he basically gets burned up again by Liu Kang. So how ironic, but I thought his character was pretty cool. Gore, I thought Gore was awesome. Given that we saw him last in the 1995 movie, I think that the CGI was great. I didn't think of it in any bad way. I didn't at all. And I thought that his face looked really good. His features, facial structure. I thought his character overall was really good. And even his death, I think, was symbolic in some ways because, he gets his hand chopped off and you would think to yourself, well, you have three other hands. But I think when I was watching it, I was really thinking about it, he's really prideful. He's Prince Goro. And I think for him, losing a limb or, appendage, he's just kind of like, oh man, what am I going to do? And so I think, that was obviously showing a weakness, and Cole Young took advantage of that and gutted him, and he was done. But I think overall Goro worked, and I really, really enjoyed him. And I'm adding Kano to Shang Tsung's fighter list because I always knew he would deflect to the bad side. And it didn't take much convincing, really, but I liked Kano as well. I think Kano, aside from Sonya, was probably my favorite part of the whole movie. His comedic relief was spot on, and he made a lot of references and jokes to other Warner Brothers properties like like Harry Potter. It was just hilarious, and I honestly hope they bring him back. I really hope they bring him back. I think Shang Tsung could, if they can fix Jax, those little monks can fix Jax. I think Shang Tsung could fix Kano and give him his, metal plate like we're used to. Maybe he'll come back bald. Who knows? But I would hope we could see him again in the future. So I want to talk about the story and world building. So I'm trying to look at this from two different perspectives. As an MK fan and as somebody who has never heard of Mortal Kombat and is just watching this for the very first time. And so I thought to myself, okay, does this movie set the world up pretty well for somebody to understand? And I think it does. I think introducing the first 7 minutes as it did with Bi-Han and Hanzo Hasashi is good. And I think, the little clip where it talks about how kind of briefly set us up Mortal Kombat. I think it's up until we get to the temple and they kind of go through the history a little bit more. It makes more sense. But I think after that, it has, the pacing doesn't really do it justice. And as an MK fan, it doesn't matter to me because I understand it already. So I'm more looking for the Easter eggs and I'm looking for what they're going to give me so I can say, oh, that's cool. You mentioned that. You included that, et cetera, et cetera. So as an MK fan, I followed it just fine. I think as somebody who's never seen the movie or has never seen Mortal Kombat or is new to Mortal Kombat as a whole, I think it needs a little bit of more work. Now, as far as the world building, I think it does a really good job. I mean, we have Earthrealm, we have Outworld, we have the Netherrealm / Hell, and we have the Void. So we have Netherrealm where we're seeing the heroes on a journey, and we see Sub-Zero come in and try to terrorize people. We see Shang Tsung talking to his fighters in Outworld. We do see glimpses of when Raiden's talking about how Scorpion Hanzo Hasashi's in Hell, possibly even the Netherrealm. We see that, and then we also see Raiden transport the heroes in between Outworld and Earthrealm and the Void. So it does a really good job of setting all those things up. And I can't believe they did this. They introduced the Kamidogus. They introduced the symbols and representations of each of the 6 realms. So I thought that was really cool. Now, I will say, after comparing some pictures that we've seen before, I think they're going to probably change up the symbols just a little bit. There were a couple symbols that I recognized right off the bat, so like Netherrealm, Outworld, Earthrealm, all that kind of stuff. And even like a Denia's symbol, all that kind of stuff. I recognize those, but as far as like Chaos Realm, Order Realm, there's some symbols on there that I think they're going to redo the symbology for because maybe it's not really, movie-esque, not Hollywood ready, that kind of thing. But I thought it was really cool that they introduced that. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, you have to watch some of the videos for Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and that kind of will tell you a little bit more about that. But it's been around for a while in the Mortal Kombat lore, so it's something entirely new. One more thing I wanted to say about the story and world building is that I do think that the movie kind of felt short. I mean, it was like an hour and 40 minutes, I believe, not including all the credits. And I feel like had they had more time, maybe like a full 2 hours, I think that it could have fleshed out more stories for the characters, more history for the Mortal Kombat tournament overall. We get to see this mural, rock-looking thing of the Great Kung Lao, and we get to see glimpses of Shao Kahn, and even, Gore, I'm guessing, finally killed Kung Lao. So it'd be kind of cool to have like glimpses of that in the past. Now, if they want to give us a prequel in the future, I'm all down for that too. But, I think it'd have been kind of cool to have that kind of more fleshed out in just like quick cutscenes, at the beginning of the movie. Or maybe as the heroes were walking through that hall and they were, seeing those things, it showed us clips and glimpses of that kind of stuff. Now, I want to say I remember seeing an article somewhere online talking about how the Simon McCoy was talking about possibly there was some interference from the studio and what they wanted as far as input. And if that's the case, then maybe we should start a hashtag like what they did for Snyder Cut and they're trying to do for the Ayer Cut for Suicide Squad as hashtag release the McCoy cut. Let's get that going. Maybe there's more that we haven't seen, like for a director's cut, and then it'll kind of fill in some gaps if there are any in the movie. So do I recommend Mortal Kombat? Abso-freaking-lutely. If you're a Mortal Kombat fan, a video game fan, action fan, if you just are a moviegoer, period, I think you will enjoy your time immensely. And I would go see it in theaters. I watched it on HBO Max so I could do the review, and I'm going to see it with friends at the movie theater. One, because I support my movie theaters too, but I think it's well worth seeing it on the big screen. After seeing the trailer online and talking about it, and then finally get to go to a movie and see the trailer on the big screen, it just was awesome to see it on the big screen. It just needs to be seen on a bigger screen, and it just is going to make the world to you. So I totally recommend Mortal Kombat. And if I had to give it a rating, while it's not completely perfect, it's not. It does have some flaws. I will be honest about that. I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. And I think I just think it's a really good movie. And I think my opinion, the only other movie I think is going to be really good compared to this is the Sonic movie. I think other than that, this is probably, I think in my opinion, one of the best video game movies ever made. And I think this totally makes up for Mortal Kombat Annihilation. And I think it takes the mantle from the original Mortal Kombat. So what do you think about my review? Do you agree with the stuff I talked about? Do you think that the movie is one of the best video game adaptations ever made now? Do you think that this totally undoes Mortal Kombat Annihilation? What were your favorite moments? Let me know in the comments below. And that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed, hit that like button. If you want more videos like this one, including all my Mortal Kombat coverage that I'm hopefully going to get done this weekend, wish me luck. Make sure you subscribe to this channel, and I'll see you guys next time on the Mashup.